Hi there, welcome to the channel, welcome back if you're a return viewer. I'm Kerry, you're watching the Christchurch Reverie Books, and it's that time of the month again, yes, a book haul. It's a bit of a bumper crop this month. I've pretty much emptied my bank account out into buying new physical books. Also bought a fair amount of ebooks and acquired more without paying, so I've got plenty to go on with, really, probably more stacked up than you can imagine. And of course, I lost access to my main collection. It's in storage now on the other side of town, so I'm kind of rebuilding a physical book collection bit by bit, and probably should save my money a little bit more. But anyway, so it is nearly the end of June. It's winter, as I keep telling you in the last few videos. July is just around the corner, and yeah, I've been doing the mysterious customer support job. We're in a bit of an on-the-job training thing until next week. I won't lie, I do not enjoy the job an awful lot. Looking for a way out, but you know, keeps dragging me back in. I think basically I need the money and nobody else is giving me money at the moment, so hanging in there. So anyway, book haul. Okay. Now, the first books in this pile came to me in the Scorpio Books sale. Now, Scorpio Books is a local institution. I've actually filmed a video there. You can probably find it in the Christchurch Bookmarks the section down below on the page. Sorry, I'm stumbling here. Obviously, I haven't drunk enough coffee today. Anyway. Scorpio Books has an annual sale now. Years ago, this used to be a big deal. They used to hold it back in September, I believe, around that time of year. But for the last few years, they've held it in June. And I found it's a little bit diminished from what it used to be. They used to give over half their shop to sales stock, and all the books that you'd been bookmarking and adding to wish lists for the year, you could probably find half of them in the sale at a reduced price. And it was a bit of a bonanza for you if you got in there early. Plus the sale only used to be a few days. Now they run for a week or two, and it's much reduced. They have like a couple of trestle tables with sale stock in it, and maybe one or two shelves. And I just found it a little lackluster the last couple of years that I've attended. There's not that great deal of stuff that you really want. It's now a rarity that you see a book that you've heard of before. It's mostly the stuff they can't sell, basically. And anyway, so I went there on, I think it was the 1st of June, the first weekend of the sale, and I pretty much almost walked out without buying anything. But I was caught by a name on a spine. Sorry, just adjusting the phone so it doesn't interfere with us here. I saw the name on the spine. I don't know if you can see that, Grant Morrison. Now, Grant Morrison is a name that does actually ring a bell with me. They, as they like to be called now, are a writer from Scotland in the UK, and they made their name in the comic book industry from the 80s, became pretty big in the 90s, and has now gone into writing American comics. And they also wrote a book called Super Gods a while back about basically the idea of superheroes, and veered off into various divergent subjects. And Grant Morrison is, as well as a comic writer, he's really into his esoteric subjects and magic with a K, and believes a lot of occult stuff, and he incorporated that into a lot of his comics as well. I think his best known work possibly is The Invisibles. I think it was in the 90s. I eventually, about 20 years ago, I went to the trouble of collecting all the collected volumes of that, and of course more recently they put it all out in one volume, easy to get. So of course now Grant Morrison apparently now fancies himself as a novelist, and he's written this book Luda a few years ago. I think it came out. I remember hearing about it, but I never actually picked it up at the time. Now, Luda is a look at drag artists in the seedy side of Glasgow, and manages to add into the mix magic and various surreal techniques. So that is Luda by Grant Morrison. Okay. Now, a week or so after the initial sale started at Scorpio, they put out on their social media that the final weekend of the sale they would be adding an extra 25% off the already reduced prices. I was hesitant to go, but of course the lure of cheap books drew me in, of course, so I went and had a look. And I picked up 3 books. 2 of them I actually paid for, and one more they had like a table near the door where if you'd bought a book or two, or at least one book, you could pick up a free book. Now the free book I got was this book, James Bloodworth's Hired. Now it's a bit of old-fashioned investigative journalism about a gentleman who goes basically undercover, working in various pretty down market and stressful and uncomfortable and horrible jobs in the UK. Gets a lot of good reviews and blurbs, so I haven't actually read it yet, of course. So that is 6 months undercover in low-wage Britain, Hired by James Bloodworth. Got it absolutely free, so it will be worth every penny, I believe. Next up, in that sale were a couple of books which I was tossing up whether to buy, but the extra 25% off kind of put me over the edge. The first one is this one, The Golden Age of Science Fiction. Now I had seen this on various online booksellers sites and maybe reviewed once or twice. Now it is written by a gentleman called John Wyld, and at first look at it looks like some type of guide to science fiction in the 50s, the thing that you've probably seen hundreds of times before, but it is actually a bit of a memoir of Mr. Wyld's enthusiasm into science fiction in the period in the 1950s, and it's divided into sections. After a suitable introduction, he goes into radio, which was the big thing in his childhood, all the type of science fiction content you could find on radio at the time. Then of course things changed over to television, so he dedicates a section to television. Then film, of course, the big movies of the time. So there we got Creature from the Black Lagoon. Of course on the cover is Forbidden Planet, one of the fanciful posters for that movie, which probably have no resemblance to what actually happened. Here we go, another one, Radar Men on the Moon, From the Moon, and so on. And the big section at the back is dedicated to science fiction in books. So he has kind of got a encyclopedia knowledge of all the books of the time. There we go, John Wyndham. I haven't actually read most of the text of this, I just looked through it, and the pictures are pretty good. They're nicely reproduced. Book covers and movie posters and all that. So that is The Golden Age of Science Fiction by John Wyld. Possibly more interesting than you might think from a book of this topic, because there's been a dime a dozen books on Golden Age of Science Fiction, 50s science fiction, but this is one man's personal view of his enthusiasms in that period. Okay. And the other book I picked up for the 25% off sale price was this big tome, the Smithsonian Music, the Definitive Visual History. Now this is a book in collaboration with the Smithsonian from the British publisher Dorling Kindersley, or DK as they're more widely known nowadays. Now I've always admired DK books back from when I worked in a library in the late 90s into the early 2000s. I was always happy to see new DK books come in. Although they've been around for about 50 years now, in the 90s they kind of switched gears and changed over to these visual guide type publications. Now the idea is simple. You have a lot of white space and you have exquisite photography, and what they do, they put out guides to various topics, subjects, and they even got into media franchises. I think the big one at the time was Star Wars, when the Star Wars prequels came about. And you know, once they had the photography and some of the text, they could endlessly mix and match these subjects and combine these books. Once, you know, like 3 Star Wars movies come out, they could create a complete guide, or and there was topics like ancient Egypt or World War II, all that type of thing. And they had these fantastic photographs and great information. And the books were very distinctive, and they're just the type of thing that school libraries love. And they were very successful. And in latter years, they have basically endlessly remix their books. They're always putting out new versions with new text, new things, and they have, you know, this is an example of photography. There's a clarinet. You know, now they have all these photographs, they can just keep making these books and redoing them forever, basically. Yeah, as I said, they've recently celebrated their 50th anniversary, so more strength to them now. The DK books are really something special. And in this one, they collaborated with the Smithsonian Institute in the United States. I think they've done that for several years now. A lot of their visual guide type books come out in the United States with the Smithsonian logo and label on them. It adds a bit more credibility perhaps in that country. And now this book is Music, the Definitive Visual History, and it's pretty much as it says. It starts at, I think, his section starting at like 60,000 BC, all the evidence of musical activity that we've found from ancient times, and I think it goes all the way through to the early 2000s, the event of digital music delivery and streaming, and in between it makes stops on various popular artists at the time, the composers, the artists, the instruments, and it is a real great wealth of information, and you know, the type of thing you'd like in a school library. Like I said, these DK books are really tailor-made for that type of thing. Now here we go, keyboard instruments. Wow, nice pictures, aren't they? And you know, like I said, DK has all these photographs now. They can keep using them until the end of the time, and it doesn't look like they're stopping. They're putting these books out forever, and people buy them, and they're worth every penny, I think. Now, this book has this kind of like timeline section up to the near present, and then there's like a reference section with a glossary, and another guide to genres, and biographies, little potted biographies of various prominent artists and composers and movers and shakers in music. So that is the DK Smithsonian Music, the Definitive Visual History. So that was the books I got in the Scorpio sale. I wasn't expecting to buy anything, so somebody won out of the deal, me and Scorpio. Now the next thing was from Arty Bees in Wellington. I've mentioned them several times before. They're a big used bookstore in central Wellington. I haven't been there for maybe 10, 11 years personally in person, but I bought from their online webpage, which is a really excellent treasure trove of stuff. You often see a book that you've been meaning to buy for years, and it will suddenly pop up one day. They update the page every day just about with what their new acquisitions from people. I don't think they're actually buying books at the moment, but they've got such a backlog of stuff that they bought that they can keep updating their webpage forever, seemingly. And one that I found that I had wanted for years is this one, the Encyclopaedia Anatomica. Now this is a small hardcover version of a book that has been published in many formats for about the last 20-30 years. I remember looking at a large format hardcover book of this in a bookshop way back in, you know, the year 2000, or even in the 1990s perhaps. It was way back before the earthquakes anyway, because that shop no longer exists. Now this book is published by Taschen, the famous German publisher, and their books are like DK, exquisite examples of the art, photography, design, what have you. They're very big on promoting culture, cultural subjects. Now this one's a little odd. I'm not sure why I actually got fixated on it. Perhaps it's a science, technology, biology sort of interest swirling around. And what this is about is a series of wax anatomical models that were made in 18th century Italy, I think Florence, and they were like we'd have like high-res 3D graphics for biology, anatomy today. These were like the 18th century equivalent of that, and I'm not sure if you can see very well. These are examples, and what they've done for this book is they've photographed every little bit of these wax models and written a little bit of text about each one in several languages. Now there are some pretty gruesome stuff in here, as you probably can expect. Probably not one to leave lying around for your small children to pick up. Anyway, this became like a holy grail of mine. I saw this book right in the shop, like I said, and I've always been wanting to get a copy. And all that's been available is usually tatty softcover versions, so I was surprised. I actually bought this not knowing it was a hardcover. I was surprised. I ordered it from Arty Bees and it arrived 2 days later, and it was a small hardcover version, which was another win for me. So that is Encyclopaedia Anatomica from the publishers Taschen. Okay, so with my pay arriving a couple of weeks back, I immediately hit the online bookstores, of course, like a fool, because now I can't afford anything until my next payday. And one that I've got there, which I saw talked about recently, was this one, The Bookmakers by Adam Smythe. Now, it is a book on the subject of books, so very self-referential type of thing. And Adam Smythe basically looks into the lives of 18 famous people, well, not so famous, some of them are people who were involved in the book trade, book manufacturing, book printing, publishing, 18th people over the last 500 years or so, and how they altered or carried on the traditions of bookmaking. It's a handsome little hardback, and this was on sale on Amazon.com.au. I'm not sure what the reason for the sale was, because it's usually about $70 this book, which is quite expensive, but it was reduced by about $40, and so I snapped it up, being a complete sucker. And it's a very well designed book. There's inline illustrations of various bookish stuff, as you expect, portraits of the people involved, and artworks, and there are also a centre spread of plates referring back to each section of the text. So it looks like a weighty read there, probably heavy duty stuff, biography, history, all that type of thing. I have to be in the right mood for that type of thing, but I think I'll enjoy this. So that is The Bookmakers, A History of the Book in 18 Remarkable Lives by Adam Smythe. Now, also from Amazon, they arrived the same day, were these two books. Hard to separate them really. My favourite thing is Monsters by Emil Ferris. Now, I was put onto these by the author and online celebrity, maybe Cory Doctorow, who is very right on in his political feelings, and is also a very good recommender of quality stuff. Now, these books are graphic novels, but they're done in an exquisite art style, which looks like someone has drawn the entire thing with fine ballpoint pens, some black and white, some colour, and it's really the story of a young woman growing up in the 1960s US, and all the life obstacles she overcomes, and she notes her life story in the artwork, and as part of her growing up, she has an obsession with like old monster movies and horror and that type of thing, and that all gets incorporated into the artwork. Now, they look astonishing to see in person, and once I saw them online, I just knew I had to grab a copy of this. Again, they were quite expensive to get hold of, but I think well worth it. So that is my favourite thing, is Monsters. Now, this came out several years ago, and what brought them into media attention again recently is the second volume. My favourite thing is Monsters Book 2, the lovely cover there, and that one basically continues the tradition. The artwork's even more detailed and striking in this one, and it basically continues the story of the main character. There we go. So that is my favourite thing, is Monsters, Book 1 and 2 by Emil Ferris. Okay, and a day or two later, another book arrived from Amazon, which I had been on my wish list for quite a while, and this is the second edition of a book that I had already bookmarked several years ago. Now, this one is Spaceships. If you watch this channel, you probably know I'm a bit of a space nerd as well as a book nerd, kind of all merges together in the end, in space, science fiction, that type of thing. One of my earliest loves and interests and passions, and I'm a sucker for a good book on space technology and space exploration. Now this is a kind of a coffee table type reference, maybe. Spaceships from fact and fiction, really, and it goes back to early days, people dreaming about travelling to other planets by balloons, etc. And it basically is divided into several sections. The first section being the dreamers, then we've got the engineers, experimenters, then World War II, the Golden Age, then dreams to reality when the space exploration actually starts happening, and then we're present day basically, and then we're looking to the future. Now, this book is probably 80% illustrations. Like I said, it's more a coffee table type book. And each picture has a fair amount of captions to it. There is some main text as well, but kind of hovers in and out depending on the chapter how much is in it. Of course, we have the obligatory Apollo mission stuff. You know, I'm not sure why I sound down on it, but I think being a space enthusiast for the last 40 odd years, you're just pummeled with Apollo. Of course, it is one of the major achievements of mankind, but sometimes you just think, I have seen this so often. There's some big name space magazines, periodicals, which smothered its readers in Apollo stuff, and I don't know, I just found it a little too much. There's so much going on, so much thoughts and invention in this field, which I think we kind of stick to the glories of the past a little too much, perhaps. You know, of course, giving everyone credit where they're due, but of course this also includes spaceships from famous science fiction features. We've got Star Trek and Star Wars there. So it is an excellent kind of general book. I mean, if you've got children or friends that into space and space exploration, this is an excellent book. It's to just leaf through and look at the pictures and read some of the captions, and it does include some pretty obscure stuff, and there's some pictures in there I've never actually seen before, so that's a bonus. So that is Spaceships. The lead author on this is Ron Miller, who is well known for this type of thing. I have a book that he put out many years ago called The Dream Machines, which is a very thick kind of encyclopedia of spacecraft ideas from fact and fiction, and this is kind of like a cut down modern version of that book. So that is Spaceships. Now this is the second edition. Original edition has a little less text and pictures in it, and this has been updated. So if you want this book, go for the second edition if you can find it. I did when I was looking for this book, I found it was only available in Amazon as far as I could see, but your mileage may vary on that. You may be able to find it. Now, at the same time as I ordered those Amazon books, I ordered a selection of used books from the local shop, Reverie Booksellers, not too far from here. I mean, if I had my own transport, I probably would have gone there in person, but of course I don't. So I ordered on their online site, which is usually a great deal, and waited. And it took I had to actually contact the parcel company to find out what was happening to my parcel. And lo and behold, that afternoon they arrived. So it had been sitting in someone's van for a week for some reason. And just a small selection of used books I got from there. So the first one here is More Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshops. Now, as the title suggests, this is a second or third volume in a series that this type of thing published by a lady called Jen Campbell, and all it is basically anecdotes and quotes and weird sayings that people who run bookshops or have overheard in bookshops, and there's little cartoon kind of things breaking up the text. What I've read in here, it's quite amusing. So that is Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshops, or actually More Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshop by Jen Campbell. Next up, The Wire, Truth Be Told. Now, I was a big fan of the series The Wire, the cop, crime, drug, whatever you want to call it series, many years ago now, in the early 2000s, and used to play late at night here in New Zealand on free-to-air television. I used to tape it, and then I'd watch it with a friend, and we became big fans of the series and how it would change between seasons and what have you. Now, I saw this book originally on a trip to Wellington, probably about a month before the big earthquake here in Christchurch, and I was tempted to pick it up then. This is basically a behind the scenes tell-all book about how the series was made by the writers and the directors and the actors, and it's fully illustrated as well. Of course, there they go, and various characters, and the actor of course is deceased now. This is a used book, as I told you, and look, it even has a map in the back. Okay, so anyway, like I said, I was going to buy this years and years ago, but it just went out of my mind, and I saw it for sale at Reverie Bookshop on sale, second hand, so I picked that one up. So that's The Wire, Truth Be Told, by Rafael Alvarez, with an introduction by David Simon, the original creator and writer of The Wire. Next up from the Reverie lot is this book, Kings of the Wyld. Not too much to say about this. I saw this got good reviews several years ago when it first came out. It is a fantasy novel about a band of mercenaries that have to get back together later in life because of some particular threat. People said it was a breath of fresh air for this type of genre. I don't know too much about it. I know that it has gone on to become a series. Now this is Kings of the Wyld by Nicholas Ames. Could be fun. It sounds fun, like a kind of like a contemporary remix of fantasy, extruded fantasy as we sometimes call it. I haven't been a huge fan of fantasy since maybe high school or a few years post high school. I was mad for it at high school. I was doing the Dungeons and Dragons thing and all that type of thing at high school, but kind of lost my taste for it. And actually nowadays I go into bookshops, and what they call the science fiction section is pretty much fantasy, 95% of it is, and romantasy, or whatever the current flavour du jour is. I'm actually reading a book in that genre now to see what it's all about. I won't ruin the surprise on that one yet, but yeah, so that's Kings of the Wyld, a fantasy book about mercenaries and fighting and all that type of thing, by Nicholas Ames. Now the last book I got from Reverie was this one, People of New Zealand by Sam Moore. This was a little high profile about 5 years ago. Sam Moore is actually a local Christchurch artist, has a unique cartoon style which somehow is cartoony but still manages to look fairly realistic. After this, he went on to create a comic book series for a US publisher. I think the US publisher was Scout Comics, and he produced a comic called The Visitor's Guide to Flogoria, which I bought all the digital issues of and really enjoyed. He wrote and drew all that series, and before he did that, he put out this, The People of New Zealand. Now, this is a semi-affectionate look at various New Zealand stereotypes, or the type of people you just see around in the streets in this country. And I think, there we go, all sorts of illustrated guides to various New Zealand characters. It's very accurate, but still a little stereotyped, of course, but you know, that's the humour of it. We can all recognise these type of people from our own experiences. So it's a fun little book. You could probably know, if you lived here, you'd know people that look very much like this. So that is People of New Zealand by Sam Moore. Now, I think that is the last one I got from Reverie, so sorry, my nose is running yet again. Seems to happen in these videos if they go on too long. The last book, but not the least, is Harlan Ellison's Greatest Hits. Now, I picked this one up from Mighty Ape, the big online purveyor of goods in New Zealand. Of course, it's now owned by Australians, but we don't mention that. So Mighty Ape know my birthday for some reason, and they sent me out a voucher to get a significant chunk off something before my birthday, or before the date of my birthday. So that was nice of them. Of course, you had to buy a certain value worth of goods to get that discount for the coupon, and this is what I chose to buy. Usually about $50. I got it for a significant discount, and this is Greatest Hits by Harlan Ellison. Well, it's a selection of Harlan Ellison stories edited by Michael Straczynski of Babylon 5 fame. Now, Straczynski seems to be on a major push to bring Harlan Ellison back into the limelight. Now, excuse me, Harlan Ellison was one of those kind of semi-mythical authors that I would hear more about than actually read growing up. I saw like adaptations of his stories on things like The Twilight Zone, but I never really read much of his work until fairly recently. Excuse me. I'm actually currently reading a electronic copy of Dangerous Visions, the book that made him a famous name for putting it together back in the late 60s. He an anthology of what they call new wave science fiction, which was supposedly dangerous in those days, and Ellison put together the I think 3 volumes of the Dangerous Visions series. The third one was never published and became quite a bit of a controversy over that. And of course he wrote a lot of his own fiction. He never liked being called a science fiction author. He was basically a fighter for social justice, but he was also a grumpy old sod. Even from his young age, he didn't put up with a lot of bullshit from people, and he had pushed back wherever he could, and he got into arguments with publishers and other writers. And I think it was the Outlaw Bookseller on his YouTube channel who recently reviewed this, and he went into a lot of detail about Ellison's history of these stories and so on. And he basically stated that Ellison's books never really stayed in print long, and that's probably a reason why a lot of people never actually read him. Personally, I've only ever seen, I think, 1 book by Harlan Ellison in a New Zealand context, and that was in a library book. I think it was Mephisto in Onyx. It was kind of like a strange landscape format hardcover of that story in the New Brighton Library, which I used to go to when I was young. So that's really was my only exposure to Harlan Ellison until very recently. And of course, like I said, they're trying to bring him back into the limelight by republishing the Danish Dangerous Visions series, including the last Dangerous Visions, which never got published originally, and it's going to come out later this year, I think October. And this book here is like the first salvo of the reintroduction of Harlan Ellison. It's a selection of his short stories over the years. People say that it's missed out a couple of really important ones, but having never read 90% of these myself, I am looking forward to diving in and see what made Ellison's writing special. Now, I think it has something like 20 stories in here, divided into various sections like Angry Gods, Lost Souls, Passage of Time, The Lighter Side, and so on. Of course, the big name one that I recognise on here is I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, the book about a AI which is torturing the last survivors of mankind in an underground cavern. Now, when I was younger, there was a video game based on this story which a friend of mine bought and enjoyed, and so that brings back memories of that for me. So that was Greatest Hits by Harlan Ellison, bought from Mighty Ape. Okay, I think I am almost coughing myself to death through talking, and my nose is running, so I might just leave it there before things get a little too disgusting here. Thank you for viewing this video. I hope you enjoyed learning about all these books with me. Next month is going to be a slim pickings, I'm afraid, because I really have to save money, and I have had some time off work for health reasons, and you know, that bank account is not so big anymore. So we'll leave it there. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.